Hey families, I just wanted to take a couple minutes to go over your child's blue data folder that came home with them on Friday. Since we don't have parent-teacher conferences, I know it's nice to have me just kind of run through and explain everything to you, so I thought I would go through and just give a little more detail about what's in the folder, and then if you have specific questions about your child's assessments, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So the first thing in there is the quarter 2 math and literacy assessment. This is something that we gave one-on-one, and just an update very similar to the last assessment. A few different things for specific standards that we covered this quarter, but you can kind of get a snapshot of the letters and sounds that your child has mastered, applying those letters and sounds to the beginning and ending of a word. We're working on rhyming, updated list of the sight words that your child has mastered, how they're doing with their first and last name. We're still working on last name, that's tricky. A lot of them are great about copying it, but some of them are still working on being able to do that from memory. Working on blending CVC words, so consonant, vowel, consonant, short 3-letter words like map, just being able to say the sound for each letter and then put them all together so they can read the word. And then for math standards, we're working on measurement, so working on counting to 50 by ones, counting to 100 by tens, and then counting backwards from 10 to 1. Also, we covered 2D and 3D shapes. This is something that we will visit again later in the spring to do more work with, so no worries if they didn't have quite all of those names mastered yet. And then the back of that assessment was talking about the value of a number, which is more or less, and being able to use the words to make the number sentence true. So these are standards that we just started covering towards the end of the quarter, and we will continue working on those in the spring as well. And then the next thing in there is your child's Lexia report. Looks something like this. And this just kind of gives an overview of the level that your child is working on in Lexia. Ideally, you would like to see them working on level 4 or above. That means they're on track to meet the end of the year goal. If they're not quite there yet, it's okay. We are going to be kind of focusing in on those kiddos and getting them some more time at school in Lexia. If that's something you would like to work on at home as well, I would encourage that, just as long as they're not getting any help from adults or other siblings at home. Of course, making sure they understand the directions is great, but I do want this to be them answering the questions, and if there's something that they're struggling with, that's good for me to see on the reports that Lexia gives me, so I can work with them on that as well at school. The 3 things that I kind of look at are over here, and this just talks about their accuracy, how much time they spent working on that specific skill, and then the rate at which they were working. So if it's a low accuracy, if there's a large amount of time that they spent on that skill, or if it says that they were slow on that skill, then that generally indicates that it's something they were struggling with. If it's medium or high on accuracy, relatively short amount of time on that skill, and average or fast rate, then that generally indicates it's something that they were able to master pretty quickly. The next report in there is iReady reading, and that is going to show the latest diagnostic test that we took right before winter break in comparison to the diagnostic that we took at the beginning of the year. The kids all showed really awesome growth in that, so I circled kind of up here the amount of points that your child went up from their first diagnostic test. So everyone showed growth in that, which was fantastic. And then over to the right hand side near the top, I kind of wrote like wow, or circled it, gave a smiley or something that said what their level was. So it could be emerging K, early K, mid K, and late K. So we kind of look at it as emerging K would be first quarter kindergarten, emerging K would be second quarter kindergarten, mid K is third quarter in kindergarten, and late K is fourth quarter in kindergarten. So that kind of gives you a better idea of how they're performing. iReady again is very tricky, and it's kind of a standardized testing format. So I do say that if they're one kind of quarter behind where we are right now in the year, I'm totally good with that. So if they are working at an early K level, that's right on track. A mid K level would be kind of like ahead of where we would need to see them at this point of the year. Late K obviously would be way ahead. And then if it's saying emerging K, then that kind of tells us, you know, maybe that's something that we can continue working on. So the next one behind that would be iReady Math, and I did the same kind of thing, circled the points that they went up, and then kind of indicated over to the right their current level. So that will give you some good information as you go through and break down the different sections. It gives you specifics as to what that domain entails, so that you have a better idea of you know, the specific skills that they are doing really well with and ones that we'll keep working on. After that should be a writing sample. This is something that we have been working really hard on over the last quarter, transitioning from just copying a sentence that I would write on the board. We moved to me giving them a sentence starter and then finishing the sentence with the word of their choosing with an illustration to match and using good sentence structure. And then towards the end of the quarter, we had just started working on then completing an entire sentence on their own, them coming up with the idea and then using their letter sound knowledge to encode a sentence, using sight word knowledge to help with those words, capital at the beginning, spaces between, punctuation at the end, and then an illustration to match. So you can kind of see how they're doing with that. That is something that we definitely will continue working on, and kiddos that are doing well with that will continue pushing to have them write more than one sentence at a time for their writing. After that is a big list of kindergarten goals. Looks something like this. And this is kind of a snapshot of some of the bigger standards that are kindergarten year-long standards. We went through one-on-one with your child and looked at their last assessment that we included in the folder, and they colored in things that they've already mastered. So any star that's colored in means your child is already doing this really well, and it's not something that we'll need to spend a ton more time working on. And then they decided on one and circled it. That was something that they wanted to make their focus standard for this quarter. So every Friday we're going to have goal time, and that will be a time where your student will have dedicated time to work on that specific goal that they have chosen to really put some extra work into mastering. So that's something that we'll continue to update for the rest of the year and send that home periodically so you can see the progress they're making on mastering all of our big kindergarten standards. And then the last thing in there is that CVC dictation assessment. This is pretty tricky. I say the word kind of like a spelling test, but it's not, we're not focusing on memorizing how to spell words. We're working on applying the phonics knowledge that we've been working on in a word. So I would say a word, I would use it in a sentence, then they would write pound and tap. So we pound the word, like if it's bat, we would do bat, and then they go at bat. And they would write down a letter for each sound that they hear in the word, and then they put it together and write the full word over to the right. So you can see we tried to use a variety of letters so that they could practice applying those. We have covered all of our letters now and letter sounds, so that's something that kiddos should be getting pretty familiar with and being able to use in their writing, as well as identifying those letter sounds when they're reading. On the back of that, we did 3 sentences, and that is super tricky. They were sentences that I came up with and then would dictate to them. So we would count out how many words were in the sentence. They were to draw that many lines on their sentence paper, and then we would go through and say each word in the sentence for them to write. So that takes quite a bit of time and quite a bit of practice. That's something that we do every week, and we'll just continue working on this. It's a great thing if you want to practice at home for your kid to journal, or even, you know, just with sidewalk chalk or anything like that. That would be a really good thing that everyone can use practice on as well. So that's kind of just a quick overview of the information in the Q2 Blue data folder. Once you've looked at all of that information, you are welcome to take it out and keep it at home, or you can leave it in there and I'll just continue adding the next quarter's worth of information in there as we go throughout the year. But if you would return those to school sometime this week after you've had a chance to go through, that would be wonderful. And I'll keep those here to put the things in for next quarter. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to set up a phone call with you. We can just do it through email. If you want to come in or have a Zoom, we can do that too. But again, I'm happy to provide more detailed update on any of our kiddos if you have questions. So thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. I'm super proud of all of our kids. They're making really amazing progress this year. And if I have any specific concerns, I'll be reaching out to you this week. Thanks again. Have a good night.